Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Be here, Democratic strategist, host of That Trippi Show, and my new show, On the Ground with Joe Trippi. With me is the other Joe, celebrated journalist Joe Klein. Joe's been covering political campaigns for a long time, and I've sure been running many of them just about as long. Sometimes we agree, other times not so much. But today, I think we're talking about something and somebody really interesting in Montana. So, Joe, why don't you take us there?
Yeah, I've been doing this since the Stone Age, just about. And speaking of Montana, I think my first dispatches were sent by Pony Express. But you can find my work on my Substack, which is called Sanity Clause. And Joe and I are thrilled this week to have this guy as our special guest.
When that siren goes off, you go. Off to some wildfire, ripping through a chunk of forest you've never seen. When you get there, you jump, because fire moves quick. Right now, the richest people in this country are trying to burn it all down so they can buy it all up. Meanwhile, folks are breaking their backs, barely getting by. Can't afford the doctor, priced out of house and home, just one surprise bill away from devastation. While we're working more, but getting less. DC isn't doing much about it, either because they don't hear the siren or because they set the blaze. I'm Sam Forstag, Smokejumper, union leader, trained to deal with a crisis. I know what it's like to work 1,000 hours of overtime and still be holding on by my fingernails. And I've seen the Montana we love burn around us while corporations and billionaires buy up our housing, gut our healthcare and retirement, and strip it all down for parts just to sell it back to us. We're in crisis, but our Congressman Ryan Zinke doesn't give a damn, because while we're scraping by, he's in Congress getting $20 million richer. I'm running for Congress because I'm done pretending the rich and powerful are going to take care of us. We take care of us, and we deserve one of us fighting for Montanans in Congress. Any firefighter knows you don't fight fires alone, but we know how to work. We know how to swing a tool, and we're sick and tired of getting screwed. These guys won't go easy, but we've faced worse. Let's fix this together.
Well, that certainly is an understated spot.
Yes.
Very exciting and kinetic. Sam, are you from Montana originally?
You know, I was born over on the Ohio State campus in Columbus. A couple of
How did you get to Montana?
Well, I got here about half my life ago. I got here in 2012. Went to school at the University of Montana here in Missoula, worked 2 or 3 jobs all the way through. And when I graduated with some debt, I started working as a wildland firefighter to pay off those debts. And, next thing you know, I found out you could jump out of airplanes from 3,000 feet for the Forest Service. And here I am 8 years later.
Well, I've known and covered and written about some pretty amazing Montana Democrats. Brian Schweiker, who was the governor for a while, John Tester, senator for a while, and they always seemed very much fitted to that environment, that beautiful environment. And for our viewers who haven't been to Montana, it's a gorgeous place. But I've always wondered why Democrats weren't more popular in Montana. And tell us about that. Tell us why you think.
Well, I mean, not so long ago, Democrats were plenty popular, Joe. Not so long ago, I mean, when I got here, we had a Democratic governor. We had a Democratic United States senator. In the last 15 years, we had a 50-50 split in the Montana State Senate. None of that is so far ago. Right here in Montana, for the first time ever in 2023 in state history since 1889, we had a Republican supermajority in the state legislature. So this new Republican dominance in the state is a new phenomenon, and it is not something that's too late to fix. And the district I'm running in here, sir, it's Western Montana. Montana's first. We know a Democrat can win it because a Democrat just won it last year. John Tester won this district. Well, he lost the state in the year that I would offer. The National Party was doing everything they could to make it hard for a Democrat to win. This is how we fix that.
So, that last part is really interesting. The question is, why did it move so far toward the Republicans? What did the Democrats do wrong, and how are you going to fix that?
Well, Joe, like a lot of things, what's happening in Montana is a lot like the rest of the country. It is just on overdrive. I mean, we are in a state that has the least affordable housing market in the country because, well, it's the most beautiful place in the country, and a lot of people discovered it. So a lot of folks started moving here, and now you have so much more ability than you used to have. And with the advent of remote work and all the rest, that meant costs started going up. And here in Missoula, the median home price is $570,000. It's about $200,000 6-7 years ago. Bozeman, it's just shy of $1 million. People are living through rising costs at a rate that exceeds almost anywhere else in the country. And, I would offer what has happened to Democrats is we have been subject to a national party that has gotten out of touch with voters. I mean, what I'm talking about on the campaign trail here is the median net worth of a congressperson is about $4 million, depending on the day and how good the stock market's doing. In Montana, the average wage is $60,000 a year. Then in Congress, the average age of a congressperson is 56 or 58 years old. And the Democrats are the older of those two parties. That is a problem. That is an issue of representation. And that leads to a disconnectedness and a lack of urgency for working people like me whose wages have not kept up with costs. We need to start fixing those things in big, bold, clear ways. And I think there's a hunger for that right now from people who voted both ways last election.
Well, yeah, Joe and I may disagree about this, but I feel that that the way the Democrats went off the rails was to overemphasize cultural issues and identity politics, and not to emphasize the things that you emphasize in your video, which are affordability and fairness.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, I hear you there. What I think about is, I'm a Vonnegut fan. I don't know if you ever read him, but he's got a great line in one of his books that you should dedicate yourself to the largest abstraction you can wrap your arms around. And when you're working 2 or 3 jobs at a time, like I did my entire time taking classes at the university here, it is a lot harder to dedicate yourself to a bigger and broader abstraction. Like, we need to do what government is here to do, which is to address material gaps, to make people's lives materially better first and foremost. And if people don't have to be stressed about just filling up their fridge, well, they have more time to extend the kind of compassion and empathy that we deserve and expect from our neighbors.
Yeah, Joe, I don't disagree with you. What I think is the national, Washington is just a lot of times focused on all the wrong things, and why I don't worry about midterms so much is because of candidates like Sam. I mean, in other words, it's the local candidate, who's reflecting what's going on in the district, knows what's going on there, isn't paying attention to what anybody in any power broker in Washington's trying to tell them. And I think we've got plenty of those candidates like you, Sam, around the country this year. I'm really excited about that, you and others that are, I think, a new generation of Democratic leadership that wins at the local level. That's what's going to change the party and change the party brand nationally over time, as voters respond to you. You're in this district's R plus a 5 Republican district right now in terms of its rating. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, sir. And I mean, better than anybody, those ratings, they are reflective of the candidates that we choose.
Right.
Right. If we want to change that, well, I would offer should find a way to select candidates and to find candidates who can actually reflect the people here. And that means reflecting economic lived experience. That means being more reflective of people's age and the struggles that most of us are dealing with on the ground, and most of our representation in Congress is not dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, Sam, we've just been through a kind of amazingly ridiculous couple of weeks of American politics. And I'm wondering what you're getting from the constituents you're trying to woo when it comes to Donald Trump portraying himself as Jesus, Donald Trump getting us into a war in Iran that few people understand. And I also noticed that in your video, you don't talk about foreign policy all that much. How do things feel on the ground there? How are people reacting to these very dramatic events?
I mean, I'll tell you, broadly, Joe, I mean, last night I was in Bozeman and we had 30 some students at Montana State. And then that evening we had 80 some folks in a room talking about what they need. What's not any different is people are still struggling to afford the basics, and young people are still struggling to conceive of how they would ever own a home in a state like this. If anything is sunk through with, say a whole lot of my friends or coworkers who voted for some of these schlubs, it is something like the war in Iran. Because of all of the terrible things that have happened in the last year and a half, I would offer maybe one of the few redeeming things about an America First platform was this notion that we were going to end these endless wars. And the notion that if we cannot afford to make sure that people can afford basic health care and that people can actually have a safe place to send their kid, that we cannot afford to shower wealth on armaments everywhere. And that is a lie that I really think has broken through with a lot of my friends who are pissed off if they're paying 25% more at the pump and seeing that they're being lied to about what we really can and cannot afford when we spend over $1 billion a day overseas here.
I used to take
the reasons the plus 5 doesn't bother me at all is because people keep talking about blue waves and stuff. I don't see that. What I see is independence. It's a whole bunch of people that have had it, and that it's actually. I know we get all focused on on what's wrong with the Democratic brand and all that stuff, but I think that it's what's going on is it's sort of surpassed that now. You have people are hurting. The prices. They were promised prices were going to go down. That's not happening. They're going up. Promised we weren't going to get into these forever wars. We're in one, or war in the Middle East. And I don't know if you're seeing this. That's what my question is. Clearly independents have bolted away from it. They're in the I've had enough, and I want real change and new ideas. Are you? That's what I'm saying. Are you feeling, anything on the ground that says it's happening in Montana too? That it's a broad coalition, not just Democrats that want change.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of frustration on the ground, and the thing I keep repeating is we cannot simply win on the backs of frustration on saying that you ought to hate the other guys more than us, because that is not a meaningful victory. Right. What I see on the ground is, when I started the campaign 3 months ago, it ain't been that long. I had a fella week 1 up in Kalispell, Flathead Valley. It is a pretty conservative neck of the woods. Sure. Show up to one of our first events, and he was a little older than me, but in his mid-30s, and he had a hell of a great mullet, and he had his 2-year-old daughter, and he said, I make $47,000 a year as a forester. And he said, I have never seen a place in the Democratic Party for someone like myself. And he had some distasteful comments. Cole and I, we did not agree on everything, but he said, you know what? I got a 2-year-old daughter, and I don't know where I'm supposed to send her, because we're in a state where childcare costs about $19,000 a year if you can get into it. And Cole is not the sort of person who would have ever conceived of himself as a Democrat, but he was real excited to see somebody who just seemed like a normal working person and whose struggles could reflect his own struggles, because that's what credibility looks like. And y'all have worked in politics for a little bit longer than me. I've done organizing and advocacy work between fire seasons the better part of this last decade. And I worked at the state level. And one thing I know is something there are dark smoke-filled rooms. What that is, it's called a conference committee. And if all 8 or 10 people in a conference committee are worth $1 million or more, if no one in that room knows what it's like to have your belly full because of food stamps or to work 3 jobs and not have enough to pay rent, well, that's going to change what sort of hills they decide to die on. And that is going to change the urgency with which they address economic concerns. If we want to change that, we need to get people into the positions of power who know what all that's like. And that's what's different about this campaign. That's what seems to be getting people excited, whoever the hell they voted for last time.
Back in the day, I embedded with the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I was obsessed with those issues. And then I started taking road trips across the country. And my first road trip was from New York to Los Angeles by way of the southern route, not your route. And I swear to God, I didn't get 1 or 2 questions about Iraq or Afghanistan. The only foreign policy issues that people cared about was China. And that was because they thought China was affecting their pocketbook. Is that the kind of reaction you're getting when from what from your audiences? It appears to be.
I would offer it depends on age, but overwhelmingly, yeah, folks are most concerned with keeping food on the table and paying the bills and keeping the lights on, especially because that's gotten so hard. A lot of younger people in this state are more aware of what's going on overseas because they have access to social media and they are seeing visceral, visual, videos and images of what's going on when we spend $1 billion a day raining chaos and cruelty overseas. That has an emotional impact. And one of the things that we have to do here is to bridge the divide between a lot of younger voters who could or should be Democrats and a lot of older folks or middle-aged folks who don't have time or are not engaged with what's happening overseas. That is a divide that can be bridged. And again, it's kind of what you were getting at. I mean, Joe and Joe, this is what a new generation of leadership looks like. It's somebody who knows what it's like to be native to that platform and also knows what it's like to struggle to pay the bills.
Sam, let's talk a little bit more about your background. How did you decide to be a smoke jumper? I have parachuted into stories, but never literally. I don't think I could do that. But how did you decide? What did you learn from your fellow smoke jumpers? And also tell us a little bit about your union background.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, my first season of Wild and Fire was in the little town of Lincoln, Montana, about an hour east of Missoula here. And that's the season I learned that there's such a thing as a smoke jumper, a firefighter who parachutes into remote wildfires to put them out before they grow. And it sounded like, well, there's no job I would rather have. And it took me 5 seasons to get picked up by a jump base. Not atypical to have to apply a few years. There's about a 50% washout rate once you make it in, just trying to make it through rookie. Not everybody makes it through rookie training. But what I learned going through that process was that it is extraordinary what a bunch of ordinary people can accomplish when they are put through the proper training and when they're willing to work their tails off. And it's not just extraordinary to see, 5 normal working people who can learn how to parachute into tight timber holes in the course of 6 weeks. It's extraordinary to see what happens when you parachute 4 or 6 or 8 people into a remote wildfire and you are up against the forces of nature. But again, with 16, 18-hour days, hard work and experience, you can stop that fire. And a lot of that is what politics feels like today. It feels like they're setting the world on fire and they're burning down what few public services we still had access to. And a lot of us depend on. We can stop that fire. It is going to take a lot of us coming together to do it. And it feels like there's the energy out there to do that right now.
Are you a member of the Firefighters Union? Is that the union you've been an official with?
I was with the National Federation of Federal Employees. So they cover the Forest Service, a bunch of other federal agencies. And I was vice president of my local. We represent about 800 Forest Service employees across Western Montana. And that's a big part of why I decided to do this. I mean, last year, between Doge cuts and all the rest, they fired just shy of a quarter of the Forest Service in Montana. And most of the people that they fired were making less than $20 an hour. I mean, when 2 Valentine's Days ago, it was a Valentine's Day massacre. They fired 364 service employees in one day with no cause and no notice. And 85% of them were GS6s or below. That is $19.70 an hour or less. And it does not get much more efficient than someone swinging a tool in the woods for $14 an hour. It was aggravating and it was disappointing. And when we reached out to our congressperson, I got crickets. And I decided that, that's not the kind of representation we deserve. And if we want to have someone fighting for us, apparently we got to do it for ourselves.
Yeah, Sam, I don't know you know this. I have a firefighter EMT as my son, who it was awe of smoke jumpers. I mean, I think he'd love to do that, but just thinks like that's like, I mean to do that and to have that. And he also, by the way, is the local union leader for the for his department, but so a lot in common. But it's same thing. I mean, just every day, the reality of the pain that's out there, and still doing your job, but seeing this, and for you to take that and decide to run. Hats off to you. What I'm looking for is How are you organizing your campaign? I mean, are you doing door to door? I mean, what kind are you doing town halls? How are you getting the message out? And are you raising I mean, because I can't imagine my kid running for Congress and having, and being able to raise money and things like this. How did you put it together, and how can people help you?
Yeah, well, Joe, your son's job sounds harder than mine. I mean, constant medical calls is something I would struggle with. Those guys are the real heroes.
Yeah.
This campaign, it is all of the above, because it is a hard and a rare thing for a working person to make it to Congress. So at this point, I got 22 meet and greets and town halls across Western Montana just this month, and that's on top of 12 candidate forums. We've got to be everywhere, because people, it is a powerful thing to look eye to eye with somebody else who is a working person just like you and shares your struggles. And that is what is going to get people motivated to come out and vote in a Democratic primary. I mean, so far, what has been a huge help is that I am endorsed by everyone from Bernie Sanders and the Congressional Progressive Caucus. That is a lot of backup, to 32 current and former Montana legislators, including 4 Republicans. Like that is a sort of broad coalition of local leaders you're going to need to win this thing. And it's not just that. We are in Montana. We got Butte America here. It is some of the deepest, richest union organizing history in the country. Second electrified city in the world, right after Paris. And we haven't had a union leader running for Congress in over a decade. That's a problem. And that's a problem that's leading to us losing about half of our union members. So I've got my union, I've got the Montana AFL-CIO, firefighters, flight attendants, home care workers. Like, that's the coalition we're building, and that's how we win it. And Joe, you asked about fundraising. Well, we raised just shy of $450,000 in the first quarter. To date, I've got actually over 9,000 individual donors to this campaign. There's a lot of excitement. And that's kind of the grassroots support it's going to take. It means grassroots support. It means anyone who's willing to pitch in whatever they can. And if people want to help, you go to samformontana.com. Please sign up to volunteer if you're in Montana. Sign up to donate if you can. I cannot do this alone. It's going to take all of us.
One of the semi-disagreements that Trippi and I have is over what issues are important, what issues are going to cut. He's pretty much convinced that the barn door has swung open and independents have left Donald Trump, and a lot of Republicans are going. But I'm concerned about some of the votes that are being taken. Last night, 40 Democratic senators voted against sending offensive arms to Israel. It's a position that I've favored for a while. But do you think that kind of vote has consequence? Does it cut through? Do people care about it?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a generational divide. I think a lot of young folks, especially young folks who are energized about progressive politics, care deeply about that. I mean, I'm not taking AIPAC dollars in this campaign. I'm not taking corporate PAC dollars. And just like, I mean, the war in Iran, people do not want to see their tax dollars being spent to reign chaos and cruelty overseas, especially when we cannot meet basic needs as a country right now. That is an easy thing to say. And we just gutted USAID. We just gutted what little money we spend on non-military aid, and we have what seems to be less requirements on our military aid. That's no way to run a government.
Yeah, no, what's interesting to me is for particularly Montana, is the 1.5 trillion that the Trump administration's asking for defense spending, while healthcare, while working people doing actually cutting, making healthcare more expensive, et cetera. And so that's what I'm saying is that particularly in Montana, I've always been pro-defense. I mean, I've done a lot of work in Montana. I love the state. But it seems to me, I don't know, is that something that people are like even understand is going on? I mean, that not just the war in Iran, I mean, but the trillion, this big, leap in defense spending that, I know everybody wants a strong defense, but given what's going on in the country and that we were supposed to, put working people first in this administration, it's just not happening. But is that kind of tension out there, or are people getting it, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, Joe, we're in a state that's got one of the highest proportions of veterans in the country.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about DOGE cuts, the sort of thing that got me into this race. The single federal agency that had the largest staffing reduction in the country was the VA. That is a place that a lot of Montanans depend on for their health care. And they're actively cutting the services that we provide to our veterans who we asked to go serve in the last war, while we're saying we need to spend another 1.5 trillion on the next one. That is absurd. And that is cruel. It's no way to run a government. And what I have been thinking about a lot is a line I read somewhere that modern warfare in the United States is a soldier being asked to fire a weapon that costs more than they will make in a year at somebody who will not make that much in their lifetime. And that is what war looks like today. None of us are getting rich off of this. None of us are being made richer or safer by a lot of these wars. We're all being made poorer, while an incredibly small slice of this country is getting incredibly rich off of all of our pain and all of our poverty. We don't have to accept that. And this feels like a moment when we can take control back and start pushing back on these things.
Well,
well, no, we're getting towards our, we're running out of we try to keep these things to about half an hour so people get a good sense. But I do want to give you, one more time to give people your website or where they can find out more about you or how they can help.
Yeah, and thank you, Joe. It's samformontana.com. You will find my policy platform on there, endorsements, all the rest. I mean, truly, I need all the help I can get. Most of my friends can pitch in $100, $200 to a campaign. And it takes a lot of resources.
It's also a place. What about Montana? The reason folks can help and should help is because, $450,000 raised. That in Montana, that's a ton of money. I mean, it really is in terms of. I mean, so instead of there's plenty of places around the country right now where races are going to cost millions and millions. This is a place where your $10 or $25, your $100 can really help make a big difference, because it goes a lot further, at least in terms of campaign costs in that state. And so we'll put your website in our show notes so that people can go there and direct. We'll put the link in there so they can go straight to you to help if they want to.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the hell out of that. And I'll tell you guys, I've been thinking a lot about history lately. I'm sure you have too. What is unique about Montana is that we actually have a pretty strong track record of sending people to Washington who swing well above their weight class and bend the course of this country for the better. I mean, we sent Jeanette Rankin to Washington, the first woman ever elected to Congress, the only person to vote against war. Well, we've done that before. We can send that again. Someone who changes the way people conceive of who can be a congressperson. We elected Lee Metcalf, who penned the Wilderness Act and changed the way this country manages our public lands for the better. We've done that before, and we can do it again. And we sent Mike Mansfield from this state to Washington. He ran the United States Senate, and he carried out the programs of the Great Society. They helped create Medicare and Medicaid and NPR and all the things right now. And they're all the things that I am fighting to expand. We did not get the opportunity to build things like Medicare and Medicaid until we had the tumult of the 60s. And we did not get the chance to build things like the New Deal until we had the 1930s. This has got to be a moment like that. I would love everyone's help making sure of it from right here in Montana.
Well, as the proprietor of Sanity Clause, I will say that I've always found the folks out in Montana to be a passionate group of people, passionate about hunting, passionate about the environment, passionate about their land. But I found them to be eminently practical and sane when it comes to public life. And I think that a continuation of that tradition is very much on order in 2026. Yeah. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate both your time.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for being with us.
Bye, all.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.